Hello, hello. We are live here in Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam, as I've heard someone say in a movie one time. How's everything going for everybody? We will give some time. Hopefully, we will have a good turnout here today. I was actually close to on time. I'm not sure if you can hear the ruckus outside. Let me know how my audio is doing, if I'm too low, if I'm high enough, or I guess that's the same question. Just let me know how everything is going with that. The way this works is it is going to be an open discussion. I may go over a couple stories on my own, letting some chats hopefully come in. But if you are here watching, be sure to hit that like button. It pushes it out to more and more people so that we can get a better conversation going. All right. So this week I'm gonna check. I always like to let people know I'm checking. I'm checking my audio here. I'm not watching YouTube here, but I'm checking my own audio. So I'm not trying to be rude here. Um, all right. So it's working. Let me know how the lag is going for you guys and how everything's going. All right, so let me go ahead and jump over here to a couple of the stories that we're going to be going over. The main story is going to be talking about the Sony FX30, which is a camera that just leaked, which is kind of surprising to me because a lot of times we hear about a Sony Alpha rumor story and we're very skeptical for good reasons. We're very skeptical. But it seems like myself included, have just kind of accepted that this is going to be a camera, and it really makes sense that this is going to be a camera. I think it's a camera that is a good move for Sony. But I think the biggest thing I wanted to discuss, and hopefully we can get a lot of people's input on this, is how good can they actually make this camera? I'm not sure if I'm loud enough. How good? There we go. How good can they actually make this camera with the FX3 being a thing? In the past, I would have thought that they're not necessarily going to hold back, and that they will go for it basically the way Sony used to be pedal to the metal. They didn't necessarily hold it much back for their previous models. But after the A7 IV came out and some of the things that were obviously not in there because they wanted to protect the A7S III, just makes me a little bit more skeptical of how far they're willing to push this FX3 or FX30 specs. So I think this is a very interesting camera. I think it could possibly be a great competitor to the Fujifilm XT or XH2S. It is also supposedly going to have this 26 megapixel sensor. Sony Alpha rumors are saying or questioning whether or not it's going to be the same sensor as the XH2S. But if I'm not mistaken, usually they have some pretty locked on contracts between Fujifilm and Sony. And I would be very shocked if Sony is supposed to be able to just use that sensor right away towards another camera. I may be completely off on that, but I was hoping to get some inputs here if we get some people chatting. If you're here and you're just listening, completely appreciate that. Hit that like button. Let's get this out to more people so we can get a conversation going. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen and pull up. Last week, I just kind of, a lot of times I bring up here the different trades or the different rumor sites, and we wound up seeing a pretty cool little story off the cuff. Last week we saw the Z8 sensor story, which who knows if that's going to be real at all. Who knows? But I thought it was a pretty cool story to have right here. So sometimes we get lucky. I check them right before I go to sleep, and then I check them while we're here together live. Killer deal for the Canon EOS 1DX Mark II, 4000. I wouldn't be buying in to a non-mirrorless camera at this point, but I mean, this is an incredible camera. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, that is a good deal for certain people, I'm sure. I mean, to be real, if you're like a super professional, and a lot of people are, they might have a lot of older glass, the EF glass. If you had the EF glass and you have a lot of them left over, I mean, this is something that you might be ready to jump on. Just because time passes doesn't mean the cameras are so much better that you can't get great content out of a 1DX. Let's see. Okay, well, we talked. We can talk about this a little bit more here. I haven't really went over it, but I think it is something worth going over. They are talking about basically Canon seems to be shutting down third-party companies when it comes to producing lenses, which is odd. I mean, I feel it's odd because I'm surprised they have such a patent hold on the RF mount that they can do that, especially just considering every other camera company that we've known can build on. They can deconstruct it. So I didn't know that they were allowed necessarily to do this, but it seems to be that they're giving third-party people just giving them some issues, which is unfortunate. Because I know a lot of people are looking forward to Sigma and Tamron coming to the RF mount, but that might not be a thing. Go back to the chat here for a minute. Check my audio. Is my audio working better? Better or worse? Better. Worse. Better. 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 Worse. I can't even see. This is... Yeah, that's way too loud. Okay. Hopefully this isn't too loud. Hopefully I'm not breaking up, but don't have anybody in a chat to let me know, apparently. It's weird. Sometimes we'll get a whole big group of people, and then sometimes it's me talking to me, pretty much. Or me talking to a couple people. And I don't mind. We get some people to listen on the replay, but I definitely prefer a back and forth interaction. So if you're by a computer or phone and you're able to talk, completely talk. If not, hit that like button, get this out to more people so that we can get a better conversation going. All right, let's just get back to the news here. Let me keep going down through it. All right, so Sony Alpha rumors. This is going to be what we mainly talk about here, about this FX3 here. But let's see what else they have. Okay, yeah, so there's some reviews that are coming about the Tamron 50 to 400 millimeter. This is a very intriguing lens to me. I really dig this idea. I have the Sigma 100 to 400 f5 to 6.3, and I do find it lacking a bit. It is cheaper though, and I got it for $900. I mean, this is a $1,300 lens, so and I can tell the sharpness isn't as good, but as long as it's in focus, I don't care as much about the sharpness. Just because a lot of times I turn down all the detail on my camera anyways, because I don't mind a softer look. I feel it kind of has that somewhat more cinematic look. I mean, I know that that's mostly digital sharpening, so I don't mind a sharp lens, but at the same time, I don't mind it as much. But this lens, assuming that it wouldn't be too much heavier, I wouldn't mind getting that extra. And I like that 50 to 40 or 400, because 100 to 400, a lot of times you put that on, it's very specialty. Whereas a 50, you know, if you're using a 50, you could get around with a 50 for a while and be fine. So if you had a 50 on and I feel like I would use this lens a lot more just because it has that 50 less. And then obviously it's at 4.5 at 50, which is better than 5. So anyways, I think this is a very interesting lens. I would love to get this lens and the Tamron 35 to 150. I feel like if you had those two lenses and a wide, you're pretty much good to go. I actually had ordered that 35 to 150, and I had it ordered for like 2 or 3 months before coming to Vietnam, but then I had to cancel it because I was coming here and I was coming and the lens wasn't. All right, so let me jump over here to Nikon rumors and we'll go back and start talking about Sony. Let's see here. So I don't know if you could hear the horn honk, but basically, if you're in Vietnam, it's not rude to honk horns. They're just letting you know where they are, but my anxiety level goes up when I hear that because I'm instantly like, why are you honking at me? But anyways, different culture, different times. Okay, so Nikon rumors has kind of, right here, I read this yesterday. They're kind of poking fun about the Nikon Z8. Nikon rumors, Nikon strikes back with the Nikon Z8. Is the Nikon Z8 coming next month? And will it kill the Z7? Nikon Z8 leaked. Nikon kills the DSLR. The Nikon Z8 could be the mirrorless D850 we've been waiting for. He's basically saying, you know, these are all clickbait from the websites because, hey, listen, it's September. And obviously, no Nikon D8 came out in August. And maybe a Nikon D8 is not coming out, or Z8, I keep saying D8. Nikon Z8 isn't coming anytime shortly. They don't think, or Nikon Rumors doesn't think that as long as the Nikon Z9 is out of stock, that it will not be coming. But who knows? I do think that it was very suspect the way the How to Fly guy had been bringing stuff out. Now he's moved it to September, October. We'll see if that happens. But it just seems a little odd, the whole thing, because people were really vouching for him and he seemed very confident of what he's doing. But it just seems like at this point, I think a Z8 is coming eventually, but I don't think he had the spec insights, and I don't even know if he had any insights about when it's coming. Let's jump over to the Fuji rumors. This was kind of stupid. No, it was comparing. So it was a spec comparison between the Fujifilm X-H2, the upcoming September 8th should be the day, versus the Canon R5, Sony A1, and Nikon Z9. So it's letting you know they're basically all 8K cameras. And so that was just kind of what does this have? And even he says, you're right, every comparison is unfair. I mean, these are different sensor sizes. It doesn't exactly all add up here. There's a lot of different elements for different people. So I mean, I don't think that the Fujifilm XH2 is going to be on the same level as these other cameras. They do say that, you know, the R5 is as close of a competitor, but this is going to be a $2,000 camera versus an R5 going to be, it's almost $4,000 camera, $3,899. So I think that there is something to be said about that. If the Fujifilm X-H2 comes out as a impressive camera that is 8K, and hopefully, you know, it doesn't destroy the low light capabilities, being an APS-C camera at 40 megapixels, which is very possible as well. I think it could be a great camera. I am a little less enthused about it than I was at the start of the year. The X-H2, both of them, or whatever, both models were some of my most anticipated cameras, just because I have a soft spot in my heart for Fujifilm. It was my first interchangeable lens camera system, and I really like Fujifilm. So I hoped that it would be better than what I saw out of it, but it is what it is. All right, so let me go back to the chat and see, is anybody chatting? We have people watching, but do we have people willing to share their opinions? We do not, and that is okay. But if you are here and you're just listening, I appreciate you being here for just listening. Hit that like button. We'll get that out to more people, and people maybe want to chat. We have people watching, not many people chatting. That's completely okay. sit back, listen, and enjoy your Saturday night and or your Sunday morning, depending on where you are. Sunday morning for me. Edward. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that too loud? Um, Edward, man, good to see you. It's been a while. We haven't been on. I guess we've been playing tag. We haven't been able to meet up here. Um, I just came on. What's up, Matt? Have I missed the FX30 chat? No, because we haven't been having much back and forth chat. I've been mostly going over the other news or just checking the other websites um, to see what was out there, if there was anything new. I checked all the websites before I go to bed, and then I check them again live with everybody. So, no, you have not missed the chat. What I was saying earlier, though, is I think the main thing I want to kind of talk about, or at least to start the conversation, is how good do we think the FX30 could actually be? And the reason I say that is because, Sony, especially as of recently, has. Oh, what's up, Jason? Jason's in the chat too. Hey, I was actually just talking to my wife's aunt. She was visiting from Australia, and she wanted us to come visit Australia soon. So might be in your neck of the woods in the next couple months, and I definitely want to. We can chat cameras in person, hopefully. Anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and have the FX30 chat. So my biggest question is, how good will they or can they make this FX30 and still protect the FX3? Because in the past, I would not think Sony used to be really good about just pushing with every possible camera that they got. They were just, you know, just going to move ahead, and they were going to give the best and greatest tech out there, or at least that's the perception that I had of Sony. But it seems like over the last few years, they've started to segment even more, where it's like, we can't give this feature because we're really going to protect that camera. So I'm just interested to see on where that works out. Edward said, I'm sticking to my predictions about the FX30 getting false color and shutter angle. See, I completely do not think that that's going to be a thing. And the reason why I don't think it's going to be a thing is just because it's not in the FX3. I would love to see that. But I think the only way you're going to get that, Edward, is if they do another update to the FX3 in the midterm. Anyways, in the in between them coming out with this, because as far as I know, this will be basically the same firmware as the FX3. I don't know. It'd be great if that happened, but I don't think that they're gonna put that in there without putting that in the FX3. So Jason said, I've heard nothing about the FX30 in my woods, like literally nothing. So I'm keen to see if this is real. Yeah, I was actually about to ask you that because I feel like if this was real and if this was coming very shortly, then you would be the guy that would know about it more than a lot of people. Because I don't know if anybody knows, probably most of you know who Jason is, but Jason is a really incredible YouTuber who is way bigger channel than my channel. And a lot more knowledge in the camera actual, in the field than myself. And he gets a lot of test units from Sony. He does a lot of Sony stuff, like a lot of their Instagram things in Australia, or he does some reels for them. So I figure he was actually testing the FX3 firmware before it ever came out. I thought that if this camera was a thing, or if this camera is a thing that's coming shortly, that he would maybe have it in his hands. I personally think, and this is my personal belief, and Sony Alpha Rumors has a different thing, I believe the new ZV camera is coming before this FX30 camera is coming. I would place the new ZV camera coming in September or early October, and then place this FX30 camera afterwards. And Jason probably cannot confirm or deny a new ZV camera, but he just went to a ZV conference, and I have a good feeling that he has a ZV camera in his back pocket. So blink, what you can press press the 2 periods to confirm or deny. But no, I think a ZV camera is coming. A ZVE20 or whatever it will be. A ZVE30, because if it's a ZVE30, I don't know. Would they do a ZVE30 and then an FX30 right after? Unless they were like very similar and like that's the, I don't know. We'll see. But they're saying that this will have a 26 megapixel sensor. I was questioning earlier. Sony Alpha Rumors said something about this being the Fujifilm X-H2S sensor. I don't really think that that's possible. Now, some people may know more than me, but I believe that Fujifilm locks down those sensors fairly well. I mean, I know Sony is making it, but I think they have contracts to lock it down where they can't just throw that into another camera right away. So I would be kind of shocked. I do think if this FX30 is real and if it has some really good photography specs as well as video specs, then this will be a great competitor to that new XH2. Yes. I think that the new ZV camera will be a higher end model than the CVE10. Maybe I'm completely speculating too much. I just think that's a thing. I think it's going to be a higher end model than that, but how high will they go with it? I'm wondering if the ZV brand is going to be the new 6000 series brand, or if they're going to get rid of the 6000 series and now it's just going to be either APS-C is ZV, their APS-C Cinema is the FX still. I don't know. We'll see. All right, Jason, Edward, are you still here? Or am I talking to myself now? Sometimes his internet is a funny thing. They all jump in here and want to chat about the FX30. We start this conversation going, and then no one's chatting back. A lot of times, Jason will be listening while he'll be working in the background, and I'm sure he's very busy. So it's Sunday morning for him as well, as it is Sunday for him, and it's Sunday morning for myself. So yes, Edward, I'm also predicting that if the 30 is true, you all will finally get an update for the A7S III. Oh, please, Edward. Please don't get my hopes up. Oh, God, I want an A7S III update. This is breaking my heart. When they came out with that FX3 update and then just completely forgot about the A7S III, man, I really hope that you're right. I've kind of lost heart. Jason's one of the people that let me know, like, I don't know. I know he doesn't know anything for sure, but he said he doesn't believe that the FX3 firmware is coming to the A7S III, which really hurt me. I don't know. I hope that you're right, and I mean, I think it's odd still that they don't have lens breathing compensation. Golly, I can't even say words today. But they don't have the lens breathing feature that is in the A7 IV. I think it is in the ZVE10 as well. So yeah. Jason said 26 megapixel sensor is what they say. Thoughts? That's a 6K sensor. Would it film 6K? I wondered about that as well. And I think it. Okay, if you were to ask me a year ago, I would have said absolutely. This is, it's, Sony's bringing out this 6K camera. But, here in hindsight with the FX30 and A7S III, and now we have the A7 IV, the numbers in Japan last month, or their top sales, their top 10 cameras, the A7 IV placed in the top 10 twice with the kit lens and without the kit lens. Then you had the FX3 coming in at, I believe it was the 7th spot for the most popular camera in Japan, or the best sold. and then the A7S III was in 9th place. So I don't know. Will they come out with a 6K sensor? I mean, it's a 6K sensor. Will they come out with a 6K camera, or will that hurt the FX3 too much? I think that is 2 years. That's 2 years removed. To me, you can't keep protecting older technology if you want to improve your system. Um, and I don't mean like old, like it's obsolete. The FX3 and A7S III are still really good. But Jason, I would love to say it will be, but I believe right now I will go with it's just going to be downsampled from 6K. But if they really want to go compete with the XH2S, that would be great to see some 6K. And will it be that stacked sensor? Is going to be Fujifilm's sensor? I would be shocked if it is. I mean, it's Sony sensor, but used in the XH2S. But either way, we'll see. Edward says, as an R6 owner, I feel your pain. Okay, he's talking about the update or the lack of updates for the R6. Yeah, the R5 has definitely gotten all the love from Canon. I mean, the R6 has gotten some stuff, but the R5, I mean, granted it overheated. It had a lot more stuff. I guess R6 did too. Anyways, the R5 had the biggest amount of press talking about how bad it overheated. So, I guess it needed more work. But since the release of the R5, I think the R5 is probably the best hybrid on the market right now. It supposedly barely overheats, or it's negligible at this point. It shoots 8K RAW, has Cinema RAW Lite, has all kinds of stuff. The R5 and the R6, Jason, the R6 still has that recording limit, doesn't it? Both of them have a recording limit. I think that's the biggest holdback. They both still have that 30-minute limit. But the R5 does not overheat in any real sense of the word at this point. So you can get that 30 minutes, turn it off, turn it back on. It seems like it's keeps going. The R6, I think, still does have more overheating. And it's a lack of, I think it doesn't have the other stuff. Edward said it does, and depending on how you use it, will overheat. Yeah. I think the R5 still has that record limit as well. I think that's what's it's not holding it back, but that's one thing that I think if they got rid of that, then it'd be hard to argue for any other camera being top dog at this point. I mean, with its stills capability, you get 12 frames per second mechanical at 40 megapixels, 45 megapixels, 8K RAW. And there's like 2 or 3 different RAW formats at this point. You have S-Log3, of course, your 10-bit. And now if you have an M1 Mac, I mean, you can run their terrible codec. One thing that I do feel like Sony is going to run into an issue with, and we maybe talk about this, Jason, as well. You might know a little bit. I mean, you probably know more than me. But the point, there's an A7R5 that's supposedly coming out from Sony. They're talking. I can see them using that same sensor, the 61 megapixel sensor. I'm not mostly stills, I'm mostly video. But the 61 megapixel sensor, I can see them reusing it, but there's also been word that they could possibly move up to, say, even 100 megapixel sensor, 90 megapixel sensor, somewhere in that range. And if they did that, I feel like Sony's reliance on the, what is it called? The CF Express Type A cards, I think that's going to be a big problem for them, because right now the storage capacity, they're super expensive still. The storage capacity is only up to 160, isn't it? I think tops. It maxes out at 160 or 180, depending on the brand that you're getting. I think that the speed would be enough as far as the buffering situation, but I don't know. I think it's holding them back. If you had a 100 megapixel sensor, and you're shooting, any kind of frames, a 160 gigabyte card will fill up very fast. You have CF Express cards now going up to a terabyte or even more sometimes. So I think that they should have went with the Type B cards. The R5 isn't much more. It really isn't that much more bigger than the A7S3. It weighs very similar. Um, or the A1 rather. So I don't know why they didn't go with the Type B. It's way less expensive, and to me, it's more adopted. I don't know. Jason, maybe you have your opinion. Edward, you might have opinion on those things as well. Don TV. Hello, man. What's going on? Glad to see you. I'm glad we're actually getting a group conversation. This time has kind of been a little bit funny because I know usually I was liking to start at closer to like 8 o'clock, which is a really good, I think, a better time slot because a lot of people on Saturday nights, maybe it starts to get a little too late. Like right now, it's 10 o'clock New York time, or so 10 o'clock at night, so it might be a little late. But it's also really early for me to start off this stuff if I make it much earlier than 8:30. Okay, so Jason said, unless they offer some really good compression raw codecs for photos, I guess. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think a big draw is for them not to compress it as much. I mean, I get what you're saying. I think sometimes we overestimate, I guess, or we overvalue the uncompressed raw. And what I mean by that is I think for most people in most situations, a compressed raw file, if they do it really well, like Sony usually does, then I mean it works. It's gonna work very close. It's gonna, unless you're doing something super crazy, it's gonna work fine. So maybe you're right. But I don't know. I just wish they would have went with the Type B. What is funny is that if I'm not mistaken, Sony, I believe that they like pioneered both of these technologies. I think they pioneered the CF Express Type B cards as well as now the Type A cards. So I don't know why they didn't ever use it. It's like they came up with the CF Express Type B, or they were one of the companies that helped develop that technology, and then it's just like, oh, we never used it. Anyways, Don, were we discussing about the FX3 and the possibility of shooting 6K? We did touch on that, but we can go back to it. Jason has raised that possibility as well. If it is a 26 megapixel sensor, I mean, I don't know. I really go back and forth on if it will shoot 6K. I think that would be great. I guess my biggest worry, oh man, I got the lights turned on. I messed up. Anyways, I got overhead lighting. I got mixed lighting. I got a window light and overhead. Anyway, hopefully it's working out. Sorry. I think that would be crazy if it shoots 6K, maybe 6K 30, and then you had the. So if it shoots 6K, if this is a 26 megapixel sensor, I think maybe that would be okay. We're cropping no matter what. So right now, if you have this, you could have a 26 megapixel. You could have an oversampled 4K 60. So if it's oversampled 4K 60 from 6K at least, and not saying that you don't have the other, I would suspect it will have 4K 120, but I think they will probably do it with pixel binning. I don't think that they will be able to oversample from 6K to 4K 120. And I don't think they would do that even if they could. I mean, I think they could. I mean, you put in the right processor, you could. But will they? Probably not. So maybe 6K 30, 4K 60, downsampling for 6K, and 4K 120 pixel binning. Maybe that's what's going on. And if they use the pixel binning thing that was in the A1, apparently it was working out. It was very impressive from Gerald Undone. So he acted like it was pretty awesome. So Jason says, yeah, I shoot compressed RAW for all my photos. So yeah, we were just talking about that. Yeah, I think that's the best way to go. Jason says, if it does shoot 6K, take my money. Yeah, that'll be pretty good. Um, Don, that would be really nice, and especially if it's with 10-bit. I think 100% it's 10-bit. Now, will they do 10-bit 422 or 10-bit 420? I think that maybe is a better question, but it's going to be 10-bit. I will be beyond stunned if they go back to 8-bit at this point. Um, Dawn says, same here, Jason. My wife won't be happy, but my bag would be happy. That's funny. Um, yeah, the wives, they keep you from spending the money, which is a good thing for me because I'm not very good at managing money. I get it and I want to use it. Yeah, that would be. I could see that being. Generally speaking, okay. What do you guys think about the what's going to be the low light capability um, of this thing? Because it is APS-C, but Sony has done some really good things with their sensor technology at this point. You can't stop physics, so you are going to have the issue of it's a smaller sensor, but it's going to be a newer generation of sensors, I would assume. So how would the low light be? So that's going to be an interesting thing to wonder about. Jason says if it's in the FX Cine like it should be 10, like it should be 10, but you would if it's in FX Cine like it should be 10, okay, like 10-bit, I'm pretty sure what's he saying. Like it should be 10, but you would imagine. 10-bit, you would imagine. Okay, sorry, it's not but. I'm sorry, I'm having to, yeah. If it's in the FX Cine like it should be 10-bit, you would imagine. Yeah, I think for sure. Jason says hard because you would imagine the camera being less than the FX3. Yeah, that is the biggest thing. Unless they think that just the draw of the FX3's full frame is better off than the FX30, which is possible, and that's what I'm most torn about. The FX3, and the A7S3 are still selling very well at this point. So where does that leave this camera? I would love to see it come out, and if it has these specs and it takes some stills, I mean, it's not going to have the EVF, so that's one thing. Um, but if it's not going to have the EVF, but if it has these capabilities for video, I think it's going to be hard to say that the Fujifilm is a better option. I like the look of Fujifilm overall, but the autofocus just still wasn't there from what I saw. I mean, I never used it, so I can't like make a complete judgment call. Um, but yeah, hard because yeah, what are they going to do about the FX30? I had a thought on that more so, and I just kind of completely went blank. Oh, I was going to say on the FX3, because they did that firmware. 2 years later, I was upset that they still haven't updated the A7S3. I think it's still I think they really sold the A7S3 5 months before as a very video-centric camera. And for them to come out with the FX3 5 months later really kind of upsets me, especially now that they've made it so much. I don't know if it's way more capable, but I guess let's just say better ease of use with this new firmware, and definitely the LUT stuff. I love it. Um, anyways, I think the reason that they did that, or that they're not going to bring that firmware, besides maybe trying to differentiate them, is because I think they're trying to push people to the FX3 because they definitely make more money out of the FX3. They give you the little top handle. That's fine. Maybe they give you that at cost. I don't think it's that expensive for them in general, but they charge you $400 more. So if they're charging you $400 more for that camera, that at least covers the cost of the XLR, because the XLR is $600 on the Sony A7S3. So there's no way they're not making a little bit of profit off of that. And then what's the difference? Basically, say you have both the cameras coming in at $3,500, but one doesn't have that incredible EVF and one does, and the FX3 has a fan. So the EVF is going to cost more than the fan. I think that they make an extra $300 to $500. I think they make an extra $500 off an FX3 over an A7S3, and I think that that's why they went with the firmware update that they did, and they're trying to push people over to that camera during the supply chain issues and the inflation, all that kind of stuff. I think that's part of the reason. I would love to see, and I would pay for it if they said, hey, you get the cinema package for the A7S3, and you can pay an extra $400 for this firmware, and you're going to get parity firmware with the FX3. Your camera may devolve. You might not get as much photography features in the future if this is the way you go. So I don't know. That's what I would like to see happen, but it's not going to happen. Anyways, I think that would make a lot of people happy though. Just FYI, my son is sleeping right here, and I can see him start to stir. So if you just hear a baby scream, I apologize. It's going to happen probably. Yeah, so Jason says, I think the firmware thing was mainly for Netflix approval. Craig Fraser wants to film my whole film with it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely think it can, and I mean, it did get Netflix approval, but I mean, why not have the A7S3 get Netflix approval if that's the point? Because you could easily get it to have Netflix approval at the same time. Yeah, it's not like we do not have other cameras that are in a mirrorless style body that get Netflix approval. You had the what is it? The Panasonic. If you had the Panasonic S1H a long time ago, get Netflix approval, and it's a mirrorless body. So I don't know. I see what you mean about getting. Hey, Ron. I see what you mean, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just don't know why they still wouldn't put that in the A7S3 at this point, unless they're I don't know. I have wanted to ask you this, and maybe I don't know how much I can say or not say. You kind of hinted in the past, before this firmware ever came out, that maybe there was a firmware coming out, and in hindsight, I know you were testing something possibly, or you at least heard about it. Did you originally think that it was coming to the A7S3 when you first heard about this firmware update? Did you just kind of assume that the FX3 it was going to be coming to other cameras as well, like the A7S3, or did you know from the beginning that this wasn't going to happen, or maybe not happening? I've been wanting to ask you that because you got my hopes up and then you crushed them. Just kidding. It's fine. Yeah, anymore. We're getting some people watching here. I appreciate everybody. If you're here and you're just listening, always appreciate that. If you want to jump in the chat, this is a very welcoming space. But if you're here listening, hit that thumbs up. Get this out to more people, and we can get a even better conversation going. But yeah, we were talking about the FX30, and will it have 6K? And is this the same sensor as the Fujifilm? I tend to think it probably cannot be with the contracts that they usually sign with it, because Fujifilm usually locks those down. Jason, that's good, man. Jason says, I like crushing hopes and dreams. He said, nah, kidding. Yeah, maybe you thought I had the FX3. I don't know. But anyways, it's funny. You did kind of crush them a little bit. It's all good, man. But I thought it was really funny because I came out with the video too. I was like, I got the inside scoop. And I was like, I believe that there's going to be an update for the A7S3. I had a whole video about it. It did really well. The video did really well. And I was quick to point out that it was the FX3 once it happened. But so anyways, I always appreciate any of the hints that you can give us. And I keep your names out of the videos, but I appreciate any of the hints you can give me so I can run with a crazy news story. Like, for example, I believe you have a ZV camera on you right now, Jason. I believe it. I believe Jason has a ZV camera, the ZV something. I think he has some new camera on him. And the reason I have multiple reasons. Sony Alpha Rumors has been talking about a ZV camera for a long time. Jason, about a week and a half ago, you were supposed to be going to a ZV conference or summit or something that Sony was bringing you to. Um, Peter Lindgren said that he was shooting on a new camera, so it's either the FX30 possibly, but I think more likely it's the ZV camera. And especially since you said you do not have the FX30, then it makes me think that you also, yeah. So you cannot probably confirm or deny, and I understand, but I'm also putting you on the spot just a little bit. I mean, if I'm a news site and I'm not putting you on the spot asking you about this stuff, then I mean, I'm not doing my job. It's like journalism 101. Jason has the insides on Sony, inside scoop on Sony. I got to press him a little bit, and he can just not say or completely just jump to a different topic. Just to, so he's just going to come out with a completely different question. Hey, Rasobi, I think I'm saying that right. Rasobi. Hello, just joined. What would be pros and cons of an APS-C Cinema Camera? Is this Sony's answer to the Blackmagic 6K Pro? That is interesting. Let me get to Don really quick because he put in it first. I didn't read it right. Jason, love your office and the way it's set up. Where do you do your videos? Do you take a lot of your lenses on set or mainly what you plan on doing with pre-planning? That is a good question, Jason. Maybe you can answer that. Okay. Rasobi. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize. Hello. Okay, so that is interesting. So the Blackmagic, I don't necessarily think this has to be their answer. And what I mean by that is Blackmagic, I believe it is, it's not even APS-C, is it? I believe it is Micro Four Thirds. But besides the point, I just feel like the Blackmagic Pocket Cam is, I think it's going to have a different audience use because it's going to have RAW. Blackmagic is going to have RAW. It's going to have a few different things. I don't even, do they have any autofocusing capabilities or is it all manual focus? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the reason. Now, what would be the pros and cons of a Cine Cam from Sony? Size is usually going to be a pro. You're going to have smaller lenses, maybe a smaller body. That could be a pro. The other thing is if they're wanting to push the technology, if you have a smaller sensor, it can technically do more. So you can process a lot more information off of the smaller sensor than the full frame sensor. So if you put the right processing power in and you want to, I mean, you can do some crazy things with it. So technically it's a 6K camera. I believe they could probably get 6K 60 or even more out of it if they really want to. Think about if you put the same processor, the dual Bions Z, whatever it is, processor that you put in the A1. I'm not saying they're going to, but if they did, and that gets 8K 30 on a full frame sensor and all the stuff that it can do, I mean, I would assume if you had an FX30 with an APS-C sensor and a fan, you could get 6K 60 at least. Yeah. Jason said, pre-plan everything I need for set so I don't have to take everything, and thanks for the kind words. Yeah, Jason's a boss. I've seen his work is incredible. If you haven't yet, go check out Jason's channel, and if you enjoy his content, like I'm sure you will, go ahead and subscribe to Jason. He's been a big supporter of mine. I've appreciated him watching. He's definitely been one of the guys who gives me confidence when he gets on here, because I'm like, man, if he's watching my stuff, maybe I'm doing something right. So I appreciate Jason for being here, taking his time out. Don says, thanks. That's good to know, and no problem. I see you're crushing the reels, and I share them, and many of my friends started to follow you as well. Yeah. I want to check out I don't do much on Instagram. I need to check it out more. I need to set up. I had a moving mat Instagram, and I don't even think I ever posted on it. But I don't know. I wanted to focus in on YouTube at first, and then kind of like dive spread out over there. But now I'm hearing so many conflicting things about it, as well as trying to do this travel channel that I don't know. I'll see where it goes. But I have some cool pictures. Oh, I can show those. Maybe. Yeah, I can do it. I think. All right. Jason says, I enjoy your channel, Matt. Camera talk is fun. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you enjoy it. It's definitely fun for me as well. I always feel like I took the news approach because I, for myself personally, I feel like I am still always learning this craft. I know everybody always is, but I didn't want to jump on here and pretend that I'm the best of the best at this craft, or not. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to act like I have so much to teach everybody. A lot of the people who watch this channel maybe know more about cameras than I do. But I do feel like if I follow the news and everything like that, I know quite a bit about the tech, even if I'm not as experienced as some of you guys in the field. So I can add value that way, and that's how that's how I felt I could better serve the camera community, which I love this community. So yeah, I took a couple pictures. I don't know if I can find it. I don't want to search around too much. Um, Let me see if I can just find it before I share it on the screen. Um, I went to a temple the other day, and I've only edited like one picture, and it was just edited very fast. Um, so I haven't done any detailed edit, but man, I it was this temple was the most beautiful temple. Like, it was up on a mountain overlooking everything, and I actually was able to fly my drone. I'm going to be having a video about it on my travel channel eventually when it launches. But man, it was the architecture that they set up. It was set up so well. It was like by an artist, because everywhere you would look would have almost perfect composition, and it was just so beautiful. Everywhere you would look, you would be like, oh, that's a picture, and you turn like, that's a picture. Oh my god, it was incredible, and just shows the art of. Okay, yeah, I got one picture here I can share. I'm not saying this is great. Like I said, I haven't edited super, but I just want to show this picture. I just want to show this is the temple. This is part of the temple, and I mean, look at that view. And that's, to me, like, the way they set this thing up, and you have like the inner working over here. Like, if you look down this hallway, it had a circle, and that was a pretty picture moment. You turn over this way, and you have the view. I mean, I love it. I like seeing this different like, this stuff wakens my soul. I look like I think I overdid it a little bit here, though. I'm actually looking at the sky, and it looks like I have some artifacting going on. So I need to go in and do like a more detailed edit. But I was pushing things around a little fast. I was trying to get it done fast because I wanted it just like a background thing. I didn't necessarily want everybody to study this picture. So don't judge too harshly. This was a fast edit. But I don't know. I'm not hating this picture. I think it's a decent one. But I can't wait to do more of a video about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to just turn this into me. Let's talk cameras, guys. Jason said, "Is that shot on the ZV camera you're testing out?" Mm-hmm. Dude, I wish. If you can get a good word in with Sony for me, let them know I'm in Vietnam. They might not have a Vietnam tester. So if you get a good word, say you know a guy who would love to test Sony cameras and who wouldn't talk about them. I mean, I'll talk about it, but I won't let people know that I'm a news guy. Yeah, that might be a conflict of interest. Anyways, no, you did not let me use the ZV camera to shoot it. No, that was the A7S3, and that's probably part of the reason why that was getting some artifacting going on. But man, that temple was beautiful. Jason, if you come to Vietnam, because you said something about it, I'll be here. I should be here until at least February. So if you and your wife decide to come here, we're going to be coming to my wife and I are coming to Australia to see her aunt at some point. I don't know if it's anywhere near you, but I would love to get together at some point, and I'll just learn from you. I would like to go and just be your, like, I want to document you on set. Like, I just want to be there watching Jason, like seeing him work, and I can just be like, I'll go get your coffee, or like, you know, if you want me to like hold an extra camera and get a shot or something, like I'm there for it. But I just want to like make a video about Jason doing Jason's thing, and that's what I would like to see. A behind the scenes would be nice. Yeah, see, Don's down for it. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, personal assistant, right? You'd be like, go get me a coffee, Matt. I'm like, yeah. I'm not 100% joking. I would just want to be on set. I would help out any way I could, stay out of the way, and just, you know, get as much, you know, information out of it. Maybe just film you on set, and then when you're done working, you know, or if you have time, then you can kind of like add some, like, hey, this is what I'm doing here and why. Oh my gosh. Jason. Wow. Jason just said he might. Is he joking? Oh my gosh. Jason says, I might switch to Canon. I hope you don't mind. I don't mind at all. I don't care. I have an ESR in the sauna. Storing all my camera stuff in this sauna over here. Got to work out on the space I got. Why do I have a sauna in the room too? I mean, it's an odd situation. Wife owned a spa, yeah. Jason said, "Gross, I would never." Gross, you would never store things in a sauna, or gross, you would never switch to Canon, because both are kind of gross. That's funny. Yeah, its sauna's clean. Hasn't been used in a long time. It's my wife had a spa here in Vietnam before she moved to America with me, and so they had a sauna there, and then now it's stored at her family's house in the room that now we stay. It's kind of confusing, but anyways, I have a sauna right here, and I never use it. Jason says, never switch to Canon. That's funny. Yeah, that would be. It's so weird because in the past, I got a second shot now. I know this is completely different. See, I have two cameras. There you see the sauna. I can use that. So Edward says, "Come on home to Canon," which has the devil in it. Jason says, "You can keep your R6." Or Edward? It's funny. No thanks. Yeah, it's weird because I go back and forth. I like Canon's usability. I love their back screens, their LCD screens. I like the idea of just how well their touch screens worked. It was very good ease of use. But I will say, now that I know more about cameras, having the Sony, I feel like I like the customization of the Sony. I like, even though not saying it's better specs in a lot of ways, and like Canon's giving you RAW with the R5, it's doing a lot of great things, but just some of the things that are set up for video shooters with, I mean, it has like, 10 different color profiles. I mean, I use just S-Log3, so it's not that big of a deal, but I don't know, it just feels like they're more thought out for professionals in the video side. Not saying you can't get, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible, but I use both, but I tend to, at least in this part of my journey, be here for Sony. Don says, for photographers, Canon is great, but for videographers, I feel as a lot of videographers / cinematographers are pro Sony. That's funny. Well, I mean, maybe you were listening to what I was saying, but yeah, that is exactly what I was saying. Honestly, dig the R5C. Using it was really fun, and image quality was impressive. Yeah, that was one camera that I saw that I was. I'll be real. Like if the R5 came out in the state that it's in right now, or the R5C came out, I probably would have never dual systemed. I would have probably never went to Sony. Um, so the way my camera journey went is kind of funny. In a compressed time. So I started out with the maybe no one cares. Yeah, I don't have to. But I started out with the Fujifilm X-T30, which is very entry level. I loved it. I got some pretty decent shots in hindsight, I think. Some things I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm just terrible. But some things I look back and I'm like, oh, that was all right. So I really like that camera. I still have it. Then I got the A7R4 because I knew I wanted to go to full frame, and that was before anything else came out. I knew it wasn't video centric, but I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get this camera knowing that it's going to have a good resale value whenever an A7S3 came out or whatever. But it didn't seem like that was happening, and I needed a flip screen. I was supposed to be traveling to Vietnam in 2020, and so I was like, okay, I had my plane tickets. I was coming here for travel, and I was just like, let me just switch to Canon the EOS R. I know it's a downgrade from the R4, but I need a flip screen. I need usability. I just need to go with it. So I switched over to Canon, used that for about 2 years. Was going to get the R5, I thought. But then all that stuff happened. The A7S3 came out. I love the idea of it. So that's why I'm dual system now. It's really sorry. Don, this would be a question for both Matt and Jason. With Sony, what's the highest ISO you've ever used in low light situations where it's still good quality and it's not grainy? It'll be different for me than it is for Jason because he used to have the A7S3, but now he has the A7 IV. So that's not going to be quite the low light as the A7S3. So maybe you remember that. Edward says, I loved the A7. I loved the A7 IV. I'm looking to grab a cinema camera early next year. This was dead set on the C70, but the thought of a more compact FX3 and A7 IV is starting to win me over. Yeah, that will be interesting to see. Or maybe the FX30. I don't know where you want to go with that. All right, so back to Don's question. In general, Don, I try to stick to Sony's base ISOs as much as possible. So I try to stick with, in the A7S3, it's 640 and 12,800. Usually, if I go much above that, so I might go up to 1,000-ish, maybe 1,600, but usually by the time I get to there, it looks better for me to go up to the 12,800 and use an ND filter. And that's usually how I use it. And that's how Cine EI, I think, works, is you use ND filters in that way. And that's how I like it. Like, if I'm going too much off, like for convenience sake, I might just switch over really quickly to 800 to 1,000 or something like that. But if I go much more than that, I'm jumping up to 12,800 and using my ND filters and bringing it back down. So yeah. And I'm shooting maybe more on the go than Jason. Jason says, I always 800 ISO for me. I light every scene, but I do have the chance to light my scenes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm talking about this is lighting my scenes 100%. Try to stick with 640 is what the base ISO is for me. The FX3 is now 800 ISO. But here in Vietnam, I'm usually switching between 640 and 12,800. Now, I will say, I've jumped it up to 6. So it's odd with the A7S3. It's not odd, but it's just different. Okay, so I would say 2000 ISO looks worse than 16,000 ISO, because once you jump to that second base ISO of 12,800, you're good for about another. I think it's 16,000 next, and then I want to say 24. I can't, and maybe not 24. Maybe it jumps to 20,000. I think after that, you're good actually for like one more. When I say good, I mean you're usable. So there's been a time I shot a couple dance recitals, or they're called showcases because it was a little bit more fancy than a dance recital. But I had to shoot that. It was really dark, and it was also, you had to shoot the stage, so I had to drop drop my f-stop down to like to I think about f4. And the reason I had to do that is because I had to make sure I could get the whole stage in focus, everybody dancing. So I had to be like f4 to f5.6, I think. And so in order to do that, I was at like ISO. I still try to stick with ISO 12,800, but it was dark and like I can't light the stage. It's for dance. I was jumping up to 16,000 and it looks fine. So, yeah. Don says, I have the A7 IV. Yeah, for me, it's kind of hard because I do weddings a lot, and speeches / dances can be lit. But a lot of times when they want to do other things, it's going with the flow to pre-plan. Yeah. Don says, 12,800 is the furthest I've done. I don't want to go any further than that. So, yeah. But it's a two different camera system. Like, I'm telling you, 12,800 with the A7S III is not high. I mean, 12,800 looks better than 6,400 on the A7S III. It's because it's a dual base ISO. So yeah, on the A7 IV, Don, I completely see what you mean, but on the A7S III, 12,800 is really, I mean, it's the next stop. You're not getting much noise at all at 8,000 or 12,800. Jason says, yeah, Don, most cameras can handle them pretty well these days. High ISO performance is great for Sony's. Yeah, that's one of the great things about Sony's. I will be interested. How many people are even watching this conversation go back and forth at this point? It's funny. I don't mind. I like talking cameras. I will be really interested to see. So Sony had a press statement, I think it was about 7 or 8 months back, about a new type of stack sensor that they have. That the way supposedly it works is it doubles the light saturation, supposedly. So if that's the case, then I guess a 24 megapixel sensor could be the same low light as a 12 megapixel sensor. So to me, that I'm interested to see when they'll put that tech in and how they'll implement it, because Sony came out with the first stack sensors. I think they announced them back in 2016 that they developed a stack sensor, and I think it was a year and a half after that, or 2 years before they released it in the A9, as far as a full frame goes. And then they have only had 3 stack sensor cameras full frame. They had the A9, the A9 II, and the A1. So they've been very sparing with that technology. Hopefully they'll stop being so stingy with it. But I do wonder, what about this new technology? Because I see so much more practical use for most people. Not everybody is a sports photographer who needs like no rolling shutter. If you have a fast enough processor, obviously the 12 megapixels has very limited to no rolling shutter almost with the A7S III. But with the double the light saturation, I can see so many practical uses for it. If, say, they come out with a 100 megapixel sensor for the A7R IV, and you can literally get the low light out of the same as a 50 megapixel sensor. That will be better low light than the A7 IV at 100 megapixels, which I could see that if they use that technology for that, that would be crazy. The other practical use, you could get the A7S4 if they're going to even do that, or the FX3 Mark II. You could jump that up to 6K or maybe even an 8K camera, but still get some great low light. So that would be a really cool use case. So it'll be interesting to see. But Sony is definitely known for high ISO performance, and it's great. And Don, you're doing a lot of wedding and stuff. You can't be too hard on yourself with any of that. And I think you're in the right spot with Sony, obviously. Neat video. I don't know if you use it, and it's not the best option. It can mess with skin a little bit, smooth things over too much, but it's pretty great. So it can work if you're making it happen. Hey, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. My throat's starting to go. I'm so glad that everybody showed up. I really love the conversations. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking cameras. The last couple of weeks, not many people have been able to show up, and I understand life is life, but I enjoy when we can get a group of conversation on here, people who enjoy the craft and the technology and just can talk about everything. I hope everybody's enjoyed this. Jason, let me know how that ZV camera is going. Look forward to seeing your review. Sorry, making it uncomfortable here. But hey, I appreciate everybody for showing up, everybody for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, hit that like button. Maybe consider subscribing if you haven't. Show up here. Usually it's every Saturday night, 8:30 Eastern time, or Sunday morning if you're on the side of the world that I'm at or where Jason's at in Australia. So, yeah, appreciate everybody for being here. Until next time. Peace.